Hi, welcome to Channel Squared, where we connect with you, the divine, and channel here with you live. I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate.
And I'm Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness. And today we are asking the question, is it end of times or just the beginning?
So we want to preface today with the notion of how we consume our content here at Channel Squared. So, I'm speaking for me. I'm probably speaking a little bit for Jody as well when I say that we do not watch the mainstream media. So with the content that we're going to discuss today, we want you to know that the sources of this content are, various channels talking to people, what we've heard, what we've seen, through various social media channels, even stuff we've seen on the internet and whatnot. So we want to put that preface out there to you today that when we are talking about these topics, we are talking about based on what we know, and you may know something different. If you do, drop it in the chat. Let's talk about it. And that when we give our views and opinions, they're coming from an intuitive place, as well as what we're channeling from the guides who are present here with us today. So we would just want to put that out there before we get started. And if you're ready, let's go.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's relevant to what you're saying because, there's so many different sources of information. And you don't watch the news and you're really not on social media. I'm on social media way more. So that's kind of where I get a lot of tidbits from. And something that I'd like to say is I take nothing as absolute. I feel into everything because there's just so much on both sides of it that sometimes it's hard to even wade through it and understand, well, what is going on. And then there's lots of false flags and distractions, purposeful distractions. So there's a lot going on in our headlines today. Should I just rattle off a few that I've seen?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Okay. So the energy crisis around the world, bills piling up. I believe it's in Germany and other places in Europe. They're burning their utility bills in protest because it's gotten so expensive. I know in Canada, they keep upping the carbon tax over and over and over again. So there's people who have $1,000 bills every single month and they can't afford it. There's food insecurities. I know Ireland is trying to pass something, or I have heard Ireland is trying to pass something to slaughter a large amount of cattle that are out there. That brings me to the new lab created meat. Wonderful. And how about all of the toxins that are coming out in each and every one of our foods? I just learned the other day that there's, I believe, don't quote me on this. Somebody said that there's aluminum in the salt in the McDonald's French fries. That's just on the food side of things. There's still COVID stuff going on and things going through the judicial system around the world. It seems, and there's even alien disclosure. So a lot.
Okay, so everybody take a collective deep breath here and we'll start diving in because, there is a lot going on. And, if you listen to the astrologers on these topics, everybody is just a big buzz right now because there's so much going on. And this kind of is the way things were once before. We've seen the same stars in our sky, the same astrological makeup right now that we've seen in times where we had, the revolution and some very historical times that changed the world. The United States was born underneath the skies that are currently, here and coming up in the very near future. So, I know that the astrologers, they're very excited about this time frame and really even though things are kind of crazy and you may be looking around at everything that's happening with this eye of what the heck is going on. I almost said something else. What the heck is going on? Take it with, a grain of salt that, this is sort of required. for where we're headed. So
Yes.
one of the things that we were talking about when we first started kind of prepping for our live today is we were talking about what are we going to start off with? And it's funny because I'm like, let's not start off with COVID because I'm sure everybody's so sick of talking about COVID. But, it kind of is a good launch pad for a lot of the other topics. So we'll only spend a couple minutes tops, everybody. So just hang with us going through this COVID thing, and then we'll go into some of the other topics. So I know here in the United States, not so much here in Texas where I live, but in a lot of the states here, they are starting to ramp up for this upcoming season of COVID. They're talking about masking the kids. They're talking, they're still really pushing the vaccine agenda, even though it's really coming out now that, it was a hazardous drug to give out to everybody and has created great harms to humanity. But, the good old President Biden is really still pushing that jab. So I'm sure we're going to see more of that coming in. And, the poor kids, man. It's unbelievable, really, that our government is still pushing the let's mask our kids agenda when the United States and some other areas in the world are so far behind now in learning and education. And we're starting to see a lot of developmental disabilities because of the face coverings. Not only were they forced to cover their face, but all of us covering our faces made it difficult for them to, read the faces, read the intention behind what is being said. And, a lot of human language is based on, that body language, that interaction that you have, the facial expressions, that all plays into the intention of how something is said. If you look at something like text messaging, how many times have you text messaged somebody something and it totally came across not the way you intended it to come across? Like,
absolutely.
I think every person in the world can honestly admit that they have done that. They've texted something and it's come across completely different than how they intended it to. And why is that? Because there was no facial expression and maybe a lack of punctuation.
Or incorrect punctuation.
Yeah. But this is the same, this is the same when it comes to masking the kids. They're not, you're taking out a way for them to learn and to understand. And, I'm a little worried about what this is going to do for their social, are they going to be socially inept with communicating just in general? Not even as much like in the workforce, but just in general. And what kind of impact can that have on our society in the way of population? Could this be the generation that ends the human race? Stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, that's right. Other things that, pop up in my mind is this another division, like where we will see a large portion of the population finding or moving towards homeschooling or different kinds of schooling practices rather than the public education system. And so that is a question that pops up. And then a form of torture is keeping people segregated, and how much of, and I'm not saying that the masking policy is a form of torture. Take that grain of salt, if you will.
I'm going to say it. I think it's absolutely torture.
Jody,
you can be very politically correct here all you want, but I'm going to say it. It's absolutely torture. Please continue.
Well, and maybe that's not the intention behind it, but perhaps it is. But okay, so now we're adding this other layer of separation between humanity and between children and communication and just seeing somebody and utilizing these skills that we inherently have within of reading people, their energy, their faces, all of these things. And okay, well, now you can't talk and you can't laugh and you can't eat while, or drink while you're around your friends. Like, I might as well be in the comfort of my own home on Zoom playing a game instead, where I can do those things. And then it's this extra layer of also separation of the population, which I think is very detrimental to mental health.
Agreed. 100%. I agree with that. So what do we do here? I mean, what do we do to remedy this problem? Because it is a problem. And the problem, when you're looking at problems, you have to look at what is the source of the problem, what is the problem, and what is the solution of the problem. And, when I look at how stuff like this gets handled, to me, the source of the problem is a greater agenda. And when I look at it from the political eye, I see the agenda. There is definitely a clear agenda. And when I look at it through the spiritual lens, I look at it as, are these people that are pushing this agenda, are they pushing this agenda because it's their purpose and their role in life? I mean,
Probably.
it's whacked, right? I mean, you look at what's going on in the world between, with the climate change and, this COVID thing that we're still, I mean, look, we're going to be living with it forever, guys. Everybody, we just got to embrace it. It's now part of us. It's going to be with us forever. Like, it's just a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, when you look at, all of the different topics that are being played out in the news that we don't watch or that we're seeing through various social media channels, or communicating through friends and family and whatnot, we see that there is this agenda. And when you look at the agenda, you have to also look at, what if it's on purpose? One of the things that we discussed in an episode, I don't even remember which episode it is. If I can think of it, I will link it. But we had talked about the way in which the earth is splitting to create this new reality, right? And
I think that one was a long time ago.
yeah, I want to say it was probably like, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. It was kind of back in the early days of our channel, I think, when we discussed that, but it was a long time ago. And, in that split and separation, something has to occur in order for us to have the choice of free will. We can choose to subscribe to whichever storyline we want to play in. Mm-hmm. And that's the gift of free will. And the thing is I'm seeing a lot of people that are kind of getting hung up in this, what if I choose this way and my family chooses that way? And am I going to have to leave them behind? And so I see a lot of like healers and like spiritual people that are kind of straddling the line. They're like standing on both sides of the fence. And, the earth is just going to continue to split. So if they're standing on both sides, they're going to split, right? And they're going to cease to exist. And that's no good. We can't have that either. And so, we're really starting to see a lot of these stories, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those stories, but we see a lot of these stories that are happening. And I think that they're happening because we need to be given the opportunity to choose. Mm-hmm. Because this whole earth realm is rooted in choice. It is the earth experiment.
Yeah. The end. It is.
It is.
And you know what? A question that I've asked, and I've heard a lot of people around me asking, is, where does the rest of the world sit on some of these things that are more controversial? And it feels quite alone, or I have felt quite alone. And I'm sure that, you watching this, or, yourself, Heather, have felt the same, watching the news, watching some of these narratives play out, watching some of these things happen, and feeling like, there's nothing that I can do. What can I do? I'm all by myself, and I feel as though I am the minority in all of this. And then I had the opportunity to go to a charity event this weekend. And I've started to see people in my family start asking deeper questions of themselves, and start to see this crap that's being pushed on us, and see it like, that's not right. I went along with it in the beginning, and now I've done a 180, or whatever, right? I'm going to stand up for what I think is right with it, like within my heart. And so I went to this charity event, and my contribution for the weekend was to drive a team of horses and take people for wagon rides. So that's what I got to do. And it was me and my dad. And we pretty much did it almost all day. Like, we had a couple breaks for the horses and stuff. So there was, I don't even know how many people were at this event. It's completely free to go. It's just by donation, and they feed you like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there's all of these cool things. And it's all about old school values and the way that they used to do it. It's actually called Hang in the 30s. So they show you how they actually used to like cut the hay by a horse-drawn sickle mower, and how they used to rake the hay with a side delivery rake, and like all of these things by horse and wagon, and even like drilling a well and making ice cream, like how all these old school processes came to be. And it was really fascinating to watch and to witness. And one of the things that I walked away with, and I was talking to my dad about this as we were leaving our last trip back to the barn to put the horses away, I said, it renewed my hope and my faith. And for this reason, that I got to talk to and listen to a bunch of people I've never met before. Like, we did probably a couple, like 4 or 5 rides an hour, and we did this for several hours. So there's a bunch of people that I've never met before. And I talked to all of them because I wanted to know where they were at in life. And I wanted to pay attention to them, because it's one of my gifts that I bring to the table, is being able to make people feel better by paying attention to them. So I just let them talk about whatever it is they wanted to. And there was a lot of different kinds of conversations that I didn't think would come up in the back of that wagon, but they did. And the realization that I had, and the hope that came with it, was that there was more people that are like me, and more people who are seeing the same things that I'm thinking, and that I'm not alone at all. And I think that comes back to finding your tribe, and realizing that we are, maybe not right this second, but the population is the majority. Like the government, the elite, some of these people that are pushing these agendas, they are the minority. And divided we fall, but together we can accomplish anything.
And I think that's the most beautiful thing about the time that we're in, is that we are being given the choice to come together, unite as a community to create our future. What kind of future do you want? Do you want more of this? I know I don't. I mean, when I look at the fact that a cinema movie about child trafficking has been a multiple blockbuster hit, that says something about where people are.
Especially when it was in, like, I don't, less than 1,000 theaters, when it got surpassed Indiana Jones, or like these huge movies, Mission Impossible, like their targets, and they were really being suppressed. That message was being suppressed. Like, there was a lot of media outlets saying, oh, this is just a QAnon thing, or this is just a whatever. And like, I mean, I've even seen like one of the funders of it has charges against him for kidnapping and all of these things. And I take everything with a grain of salt because I don't know the entire story. It may be true, may not be true. But I mean, for example, I later learned that the charge that they are speaking of, this man has like a rental complex or something like that. And there was a lady living in one of the apartments that was going through a custody battle and wasn't supposed to have her child with her, and did. And now he's being charged as an accessory to that. Well, that's a wildly different story than what is being portrayed. And I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent, but just a wildly different story than what is actually coming out. And that's interesting.
Yeah. And when you look at how they really tried to stuff that movie and have it be an epic failure through all of these media channels, and instead the people came together grassroots style and shared. I could not be in any of my social media feeds for even 5 minutes without seeing 3 or 4 people talking about that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that, like, I think I would just really want to drive home, is that you are more powerful than you realize. So many are still sitting on the fence going, what am I going to do? I'm just one person. But you're one person who probably knows 10 more people who also are going, what could we do? And now you're the power of 11. And if each one of you recruits others to love and light, and let's change the narrative, because we have the choice to do that. We have the power to do that as a community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to live in this reality any longer. We're just choosing to, because we're choosing to do nothing. And that in itself is a choice. Yeah. It was hilarious, actually, when we were trying to put this episode together. You should have seen me trying to watch, try to pick up news stuff and I'm like, oh God, it's all just so gross. Like, it's all just so gross. And I understand now why some of the people that I love are so cranky,
Yes, yes. A couple of things that my guides were saying as we were kind of talking about some of these things, but they said, remember, innovation is born out of necessity. And so when people are saying, there's nothing that I can do, let's say, for example, in terms of the energy crisis, right now there is a lot of things that have been suppressed. And I can't speak intelligently enough on each of them. I haven't done a lot of research because it's not my wheelhouse. But there's things they're talking about, suppression of free energy. And, I've seen a paper clipping from 1930, and there's a car on the road. And in the caption of the clipping, it says electric car. They didn't have maybe it was 1912. I don't remember what the date was, but it was before they put in all the underground lines for electricity and the towers and all of that stuff. So there's disclosure in terms of that. I know in my research with money, one of the questions I asked is, what do you need money for? Well, you need money so you can buy a car, so that you can pay for gas and you can go to your job, you can get groceries and stuff like that. But over the years, there's been suppression of different, what are they called? Patents for water-driven cars and hydrogen vehicles and the craziest, coolest things that have been suppressed. I believe that this stuff, and we can ask this question to our channels if you guys want to hear about it. I believe that this stuff is starting to come to light now. And the more people that get on board with it and start asking themselves, this was the second thing that they said, to people are starting to ask themselves, what do I want? And that's the first point that they brought to my attention, was focusing on that. What do you want, and how can you begin to live that life? And we've started to do it in terms of food, because I've seen the food or noticed the food insecurities and the things that kind of made me nervous. I know that food does not come from the grocery store. It's brought to the grocery store, but the quality of it isn't the greatest. What they're putting on it to preserve it isn't the greatest. Even like I learned the other day that citric acid is not what you think it is. It's actually like mold juice, for lack of a
Gross.
better term. Yeah, I thought it was, lemon juice, or like,
Well,
citric
that's what
acid.
it's supposed to be. It's
Yeah, that's
supposed
right.
to be
It's not.
citric
No.
acid.
Yeah, it's juice that is produced from mold spores. Yeah, it's
Delicious.
disgusting. Yeah, and it's very toxic for our bodies. Even the water that we're drinking is not very regulated. Like, they don't take all of the hormones out, and they there's tons of estrogen in it, and then there's tons of prescription medications that haven't been taken out of this water that we're drinking. So, like, looking at what can I do in my own backyard? Can we do a well? Can we, like, is there a crystal? Like, this is the basics. Like, okay, maybe you live in an apartment and you have no way of drilling your own water well. That's fine. But is there a crystal? I don't know if it's shungite, but there's a couple of different crystals that you can place in your water bottles that will naturally cleanse the water from impurities and things of that nature. So start looking into that. What can I do? And I saw a beautiful thing on Pinterest. It was like a 12-month like cleansing schedule. And I thought that was such a brilliant idea, because, like, oh my gosh, there's stuff in my shampoo and, my moisturizer and in my food and in my laundry detergent and like in my juice. And you could really get overwhelmed with all of these things that you are witnessing at this time. And rather, instead, perhaps just take it one bite at a time. What can I do? Can I utilize some different things when it comes to nourishing my body? I've started to take like turmeric and ginger, like this turmeric ginger honey shot thing, whatever that's going to clean out my body, clean out the parasites. I've started to do that. It doesn't taste the greatest. It's not that bad, but I just don't have the faith in the medical system and in pharmaceuticals, I guess it is, as I used to. So what can I do to heal myself? I got a cut on my hand, and normally it would be like polysporin, and I don't even know what polysporin is, to be honest with you. It could be natural, but I would automatically go to these other things like Tylenol or whatever. I haven't been a huge Tylenol fan, but these drugs, these other things that you would get off the shelf. Well, okay, I pulled out my herbal remedy book last night because I could tell that it was infected after playing with the horses all weekend. And I'm like, okay, what will help with this? What will clean this? Witch hazel? I didn't know I could use witch hazel. I have a giant bottle because, Nate's mother, when she was still alive, she used to talk about witch hazel on your face all the time. So he bought me a giant bottle, and I never really used it for anything because it smells bad. But I used it, and I used aloe vera on my thing. And this morning I wake up and it's almost completely healed. Like, it's no longer popped open. It is sealed shut. And I've started growing comfrey, which is the nickname of it is knit bone. So it will rapidly heal bones, joints, ligaments. And, I'm going to make like a tincture or whatever. And I'm going to test it on my dad's hip and, try and see if I can make a difference by learning some of these things and teaching some of the people around me, because the reality is that people are always watching what you're doing.
They always are. That's so true. Like, when it comes to like your body and immunity and natural healing, this is a lot of the narrative that got left out of the conversation during our most recent health crisis. You know, a lot of doctors will even tell parents when their kid spikes a fever after they've been, you know, they've received a vaccine, let's say, you know, they will tell them to give them Tylenol. Well, the body's natural response is to have a fever, you know, to kill off whatever it is that's in there. And, you know, sometimes they'll say, you know, give your child Tylenol before they come and get vaccinated. And, you know, Tylenol, it diminishes the immune system. Like that's how it works. And so, you know, stuff that's just been so commonplace, I think it's really a lovely thing if we as a society start looking at some of that stuff and start holding some of these people to task for, you know, what they're doing to humanity. Because the fact is if we don't do it, nobody else is.
Yeah.
You know, if we all just lay down and go, it's too much effort, it's too much work, it's too much whatever,
Or I can't
then just expect, you know, just expect more of the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
start asking,
that
what can I do? And who do I know? This lady this weekend gave me an amazing idea. She said, I wish that there was like a cooperative store where you could buy things that are local to this area. You know, climate change is a big hot topic right now, whether you're on one side of the fence or the other. It doesn't matter. But getting things locally from your neighbor is way better for everybody, and the environment included in that conversation, than, you know, me driving a half an hour to go to Walmart to get it, or Safeway, or, you know, another grocer. If I could get it locally. And so that's a wonderful idea. I wonder if we could do something like that and bring people together to have stuff that is locally sourced and grown with love.
definitely. So some of the big like agendas that we are seeing right now, we're seeing, you know, climate change. I know in the United States, there's like this whole Trump situation still going on. You know, we've got, you know, I'm just going to say it, we got a criminal living in the White House. Okay. So, you know, I mean, we've just got a lot of stuff going on here in our country. You know, what's next? The alien invasion. That's something that's gonna, you know, come up, and it's gonna scare everybody. And so be ready for that, y'all, because that's gonna be on deck next.
For further to that, or inclusive in that, I don't know, however you want to say it, something that I've been seeing a lot is that this alien invasion is going to be the false flag, if you will, to the second coming of Christ. And there's a ton of stuff around that. I've seen a lot of people talking about like, this is end of days times. And I think we should channel on that. We should ask that question. Like, you know, are they going to try and pull the wool over our eyes with, you know, a false, like the way that it was described is that they will put a hologram in the sky of Jesus. And that's, I guess, what the Bible talks about in Revelation, is that is the end of times and you'll see Jesus. But that with their false flag, or, you know, this play that they're putting on or whatever, it won't be just Jesus. It will be many of the spiritual leaders like Buddha, Allah, I don't know all of them, Jehovah, like all of them will stand in the sky together. And that the idea behind it, or the agenda behind it, is that they're going to try and push one world government, or one world religion, that one world government, that they're already trying to push that. There's the UN pandemic treaty that all of our countries are looking at signing, that not very many people are talking about right now, which basically takes away all choice from the country of what happens next time there is a pandemic.
Right.
So I think that we should ask our guides this. I think people want to know.
Yeah, well, so what I was asking as you were talking, and what I'm getting right now is that there will be the presentation of a false god. And when they're talking about the false god, they're giving it in the image of a God that you're comfortable with, like who you view God to be. But they're saying that the root, the source, the base of this is technology. So the feeling that I'm getting that they're like sending me is they're sending me like based on the feeling that they're sending is more about like AI, this artificial intelligence that has been, people are beginning already to start to like worship this intelligence. You're seeing people that, I mean, they're using this to further their careers, to, you know, bring about information, to even, you know, launch systems and programs and whatnot. And so they're talking about this in the way of, this could be the tool that is utilized to bring forth the false god. So I'm asking, you know, okay, what can we do about that? Because, you know, as a lay person who doesn't really know a whole lot about technology, you know, what can I do to help that? And so what I'm getting when I ask that question is contribute from a place of light and love, like contribute from a space of love, because your voice in the programming of this technology matters. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm getting is discernment. Like start practicing daily, like start the daily practice of discernment, of looking at the hologram, looking at the hologram of your life. So like the picture, the current reality that you see in your life, and even these news stories, and allow yourself to sit with the information without taking a side. Just sit with the information and see how it feels within your heart space, and in connection with your third eye and your crown. So the connection with God, and what you can see that is you're not seeing with your eyes is the way that I interpret that. Feel it with those senses to really see and feel, and let go of needing to know everything, or like needing to have like the proof of, oh, this is right or this is wrong, because there's certain situations that we will be faced with that we might not have concrete evidence, is the way that they're describing it, concrete evidence within the palm of our hand of this is the truth or this is not the truth. And you have to get, or it's wise to get comfortable with knowing thyself and trusting thyself.
Boom.
Yeah. And that's smart. What other questions do we have?
I don't know what's going on with our live chat feed, so I don't see one even available. I've been trying to tinker with it while we've been chatting today. So if you all have comments, if you find a comment section, please comment. If you don't see a comment section, could you let us know? Maybe head over to Instagram when this is over and just shoot us a DM and let us know that our comment feed has been eaten by the YouTube algorithm. I don't know.
That's right. And well, and maybe this is another indicator that we should begin on the new platform in addition to YouTube. Yeah, which is coming soon, guys. So watch
that. That is coming soon.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button. That does help us. It lets us know, like, if you're actually liking the conversation, if you want more of this conversation, if you have things you'd like us to channel on or talk about, let us know. You know, we are all ears. We're free thinkers. We know that if you're watching this channel, you are too. And if we can all just join together and have some really good, deep conversations, there's nowhere to go but up from here. That's the way I see it anyway.
Luana said the chat is on. Thank you, Luana.
Yes.
We appreciate you. I can see it now here. If you guys have questions and you're watching this, drop it in the chat. We're going to close up the channel in the next few minutes here. The only thing that's really coming through for me is to, for our audience, I just kind of asked, what do they need to hear or see or do during this time? And it's really get to know yourself, like understand where you're coming from and what it is that you're feeling from this heart space. You know, if you're feeling scared or worried or whatever it may be, helpless, start to right that ship. That's how they said it, right that ship, turn it in the direction that you want to go. Don't ignore those feelings. However, start or begin asking, like, what would make me feel better? What's something tangible that I can bring to the table now? It could be simply having some firewood on hand or having some extra, non-perishable food items in your pantry. It could be having or networking with a collective of people who are like you, who can guide you or support you or whatever that may be. And they're reminding us that frequency matters. So even just this conversation of, this was all meant to be, and that this is for the greater good. This is for the ascension of the planet, the ascension of humanity. This was always meant to happen. And that's the direction that we're going. And having conversations like this on what we can do and who we can be in these times raises the frequency of the world and has a ripple effect. So if you're watching, thank you for watching. And thanks for having this conversation with us.
Most definitely. I concur 100%. Everything that they said. It's funny. I was just like getting chills, the indications of validation of your of your channel. So
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for joining us today. We're going to do more of these, current event sort of conversations, and we're going to do some more, channel conversations about other topics. And so, like I said, if you do have something that you would like us to talk about or touch on or channel for you, just let us know. We're open to it all. So we love you and we thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye.